Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Discuss Detroit. I'm Jeanette Pierce, your host with City Institute, and I'm so excited to be joined today by Ned Staebler from both Wayne State Economic Development Office as well as Techtown Detroit. And welcome, Ned.
Jeanette, so good to see you virtually.
Yes, so good to see you virtually as well. Wow, 10 years. That's a blink of an eye. I mean, it feels like, I know it's cliche, but I mean, not just yesterday, but like 7 years ago.
With COVID, everything, time has like there were the before times and now the current times. So time has no real structure for me. But yeah, I'm shocked when my team said, hey, by the way, this is the 10th anniversary of our office. We should do something. I was like, who are you talking about? And then I did the math. I had to, take off my shoes, and it's been a while.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand. I mean, we have been doing tours with Detroit Experience Factory and originally inside Detroit since 2006, so 15 years.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. We, we got to plan some stuff. We've been a little busy also with pandemic and personally the, triplets. Talk about time not really meaning things. There's like before COVID and then the before triplets. And that just makes the last 3 years not exist.
I can't even imagine your life with triplets. I can't. Yeah.
Well, it takes a village. We have a city. That's what we say.
Exactly.
Well, you know what? I mean, you're always out there, and I mean, you've even gotten some national attention this year. But tell us about Ned. Like before we get into Techtown and Wayne State, what's your origin story?
So I'm a native Detroiter. I grew up on the Northwest Side, went to Detroit public schools through 6th grade, and then U of D high, 7 through 12.
Okay.
So, it's in my blood, like so many of us. It's a part of who we are. Went away for a while, like a lot of folks, for 15 years for college and then for work, and came back in 2005 to, be a part of Michigan's recovery. We were in the midst, mired at that point in the one state recession. And I went to work for the state's economic development agency to try and, do my part to pitch in there. And then apparently 10 years ago, so in 2011, I got a call from a headhunter saying the then president of Wayne State, Alan Gilmore, wanted to talk to me. So I came down, Alan Gilmore had a stellar reputation at Ford Motor Company. And, I would have come down if Alan had said, I want to talk to you about cleaning my office. But he said, I want you to do economic development for the university. And I said, what's economic development for a university? And he said, I don't know. Let's figure it out. And I thought, boy, that's going to be fun, because we have this major research, urban research university in the heart of Detroit with all of these assets. And that's what economic development for me is. It's how do we use our assets to be a catalyst for growth and to remove barriers for other folks to do economic growth in our community in an inclusive way. So getting to use the considerable assets of Wayne State that has an annual impact in our community of over $2.5 billion is it's a lot of fun. It's been a great 10 years.
Wow. Yeah, and I mean, you have been all over the world, I will say. I want to just, because I think there is something about going away where we learn more about where we're from, right? I mean, when you have the opportunity, I was able to, through scholarship, study abroad, and it's a game changer to see what's different out there, because you get so much in the Detroit or wherever you're from. But I think, Detroit, again, it's always a little bit more, the Detroit zone. And to travel, to see, to learn, and then bring that back provides both that local knowledge as well as that external perspective.
I agree. And I also think that seeing how similar we are to other places is also really important. Yeah. A lot of times when I've traveled, whether it was when I was in grad school at the London School of Economics, or I lived in London for 5 years, or when through the Detroit Revitalization Fellows program that we've run for about 10 years now, we've traveled to a lot of other cities around the country, like a Portland or St. Louis or New Orleans to see what they're doing there. And I think a lot of times in Detroit, we think the grass is always greener, like they have it figured out in fill in the blank. And you go there and you say, okay, what magic tools are you using to do X, Y, or Z? And the answer is, we don't have any magic tools. We don't know how to do this. We've got the same problems as you, or and this is how we're working towards addressing them. And that always makes me feel a little bit better when I come back. Often they ask us, hey, we saw you did X. Man, can you help us do that? Detroit actually has a lot going for it nationally that I don't think we always give ourselves credit for.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what the City Institute is about, right? And the why I wanted to launch this and go beyond the Detroit Experience Factories, because people were coming from all over the world and the country to Detroit, to me, to say, hey, what you guys did this storytelling thing, or wait, I want to meet these people. And then I call you and say, hey, can I bring this group to hear about your work? And actually, we've done stuff all around the country, and absolutely, it gives you that realization, because they're blown away by what we've been able to do here in a lot of cases. And a lot of that has been, Wayne State and Techtown have been connected to so many of those things. So day one, okay, here you go, figure out your job. What's the first thing you do?
Well,
hire great people. Right?
This is definitely true. I have been very fortunate over the years. I'll even back up a little bit beforehand, because before I took the job, like I said, I would have done just about anything for Alan. But doing economic development in Detroit was daunting. Detroit has a ton of challenges, especially if you think back 2011, we were still in the pits of the Great Recession. They were starting to talk about bankruptcy as a possibility. So one of the first things I did was I wanted to make sure I wasn't taking a task that was insurmountable, that I wouldn't be able to have a meaningful effect. So I called Sue Mosey at Midtown Detroit Inc., who I'd known from some work before. And I said, can you give me a tour of like the Wayne State area and what's happening and what's not happening and what you see? And she gave me this tour, and I looked at it and I said, oh man, this is great. I can take this job and I can go into my office, fall asleep under my desk, and wake up in like 5 or 10 years and be like, look at all the great stuff we did. Like, it was so obvious that Detroit was ready to really explode in a really positive way. Obviously didn't do that. Instead, what I did at that time, it was just me and a half of an FTE. The president gave me a half-time person who promptly said, you're insane, and left me to go back to the provost's office where things were safe. So instead, I started building a team. And started hiring great people, like folks you might like, Lisa Niskowski or Jerry Stroop or Kate Baker or Dennis Atkinson, some really fabulous people.
Hello, Kate Baker is on our board at Detroit Experience Factory. Lisa Niskowski is a neighbor here, and amazing. Mogo is just one of those examples that really kind of had its first little kernel inside the economic development office with Lisa, would you say?
Absolutely. So I was down in a meeting in Gilbertville talking to folks there, and someone mentioned bike sharing, and I was like, why don't we have bike sharing? And we were talking. They said because no one's done it. So I came back up to Midtown, and I remember Lisa happened to pop in my office. I said, hey, let's talk about bike. You know anything about bike sharing? What that is? And she's like, no, but I'll start looking into it. And Lisa was a star. She ran with it. We called up Katie Locker, who's over at the Hudson Weber Foundation back then, and said, we want to do this thing. And she helped fund a feasibility study. Lisa got 20 partners around the table, and we spent 6 months figuring out, would this work? And then Lisa spent another 6 months trying to raise the first chunk of change to see if we could get this thing out of the nest. And after she'd raised $1 million in about a year, she took it down to DDP, with you guys, where it could be, more standalone. A university should not be running a municipal bike sharing system. That's just we're not set up to do those kinds of things. But yeah, it was largely because we were sitting around thinking, how can we use our convening power better? And let's bring together a whole bunch of stakeholders around something that's really good for our community.
And of course, today, Mogo has over 700 bikes in like 70 different stations in multiple cities, even around the region. A lot of people don't know that. Mm-hmm. And it's obviously been a positive impact for Wayne State and Midtown. That's the thing. There's no stop start. This is good for you and not for us, right? It's the whole idea of collaboration and convening that for so long wasn't being utilized to its highest capacity.
No, when I started, I did a tour. You asked me what'd you do on day one, and I didn't just start hiring people left and right because I didn't have any money to hire anybody. Today there are, including Techtown, close to 70 of us running around, but almost none of it is paid for by the university. Almost everything is paid for by philanthropy or state or federal grants or things like that, because we've identified needs and then gone out to seek funding where they felt comfortable using the university or Techtown as a trusted provider to do this work. So, but I did that listening tour all over the university and said, how do you interact with our community? And the answer was frequently, I don't. I get in my car, I drive down to campus, I park in a parking lot, I go to class, I go back to my car and drive back to Livonia every day. Like that was it. And I'd say, do you go to Avalon? Do you do you ever go to Atlas Bistro, whatever? And they're like, huh, never heard of that. So we started really some basic stuff like tours, walking tours around neighborhoods, coupon books, like, hey, you get 20% off or buy one, get one if you go to these kinds of places. That was sort of the baby steps. And then it turned into okay, how do we extrovert the university? How do we get everyone across the university thinking, you know what? It would actually be better for my students or my research or whatever if I turned around and used this amazing community that is around us with fabulous people and talent and creativity and problems, but that we can study and work on. And it would be better for us if we do that. And so little by little, we gained the trust of people inside the university that we weren't coming from a perspective of scarcity, trying to steal their resources. Quite the opposite. We were trying to help get them more resources if they were doing something that was relevant to their community. And 10 years in, I say we're pretty successful.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously we work together, a lot during those times, and still do, of course, because when people don't know what's outside their boundaries and that older concept of this is campus, and that is the city, that's, I would say, the biggest, change, like you were saying, making the Wayne State look externally. Was really a big push by your Office of Economic Development.
Yeah,
that's been huge because people aren't choosing. We do tours around for orientation, we do open house, we've done stuff for funder, the whole spectrum, because no one chooses a university just because of its great educational programming. It's important, but
they never do. They tell you, oh, it's Professor so-and-so or the engineering program.
Yeah.
No. It's the football game. It's the weather. It's the student center. It's the fun they're having on campus.
It's the city that they're in, right? I mean, and that's that thing. So one of the things that I talk about that I remember learning about that made so much sense is the whole meds and eds idea, right? Mm-hmm. And hospitals and universities being these anchors, and frequently, when we saw disinvestment in urban cores, not just Detroit, right? And we saw businesses leave and residents leave in many cases, it's hard to pick up a university or a hospital and just move it somewhere, right? So frequently they are left in what was otherwise disinvested cores, but with thousands of employees and visitors or students or whatever. And the idea of, wow, and it was Pennsylvania, right? Or Philadelphia, right?
UPenn, yeah.
That was kind of like the poster child, and Torino, Italy, I think, did some great work in that kind of was like, what if the university is a driver and an anchor? And then, so talk a little bit about that and how the idea of collaborating across with the meds, the meds and eds, that we have all these anchors in Midtown.
So let me be abundantly clear. This is not my idea. In fact, the reason I have a job is because other folks had already convinced the university to participate in this. So when I showed up, the anchor strategy, if you will, I was being brought in to help be the university's lead and coordinate internal stuff on that. But, it was, to your point, I used to tell people this all the time that, there's a lot going on in downtown and that's great, but it's not sustainable for the headquarters of the Cleveland Cavaliers to be in downtown Detroit. Dan Gilbert moved into the city. We're very excited about that. But in theory, he could move out of the city again if he wanted to, if he got a better deal on real estate or whatever. Now that he owns everything, that's another story. But generally speaking, but the university, Henry Ford Health System, Detroit Medical Center, we're not lifting those up. Right. Wayne State's been in Detroit for 150 years. We're going to be here for another 150 years. We're not just an anchor, like we are rooted here. So, that's the real notion is, okay, then, so what assets do you have? Now, our human capital is an important one. When you start looking between the Henry Ford and Detroit Medical Center and Wayne State, we have tens of thousands of employees. Well, how many of them live within a walkable distance to their jobs? And the answer was not that many. And then you look at the community around it and you say, well, there's a lot of vacancy here. I mean, people now would say vacancy in Midtown. What are you talking about? But 10, 12 years ago, apartments were cheap in Midtown. I mean, especially after 2008, 2009. I remember getting somebody, I think Austin or somebody sent me a listing in the Park Shelton, and they wanted less than $1 a square foot to rent the place. It was, $900 for a 1,000 square foot apartment. And boy, I mean, I should have bought it is what I should have done. But, now obviously that same apartment is probably $2,500 or $3,000 to rent. But back then it was empty. So, coming up with really, I think, innovative strategies and borrowing best practices from other places like Live Midtown, which helped thousands of people move into the city or relocate closer to work, save trees, made people happier, built density around our neighborhood. It's part of why Midtown has always been the densest neighborhood, is because of the university. And now it's even stronger. Now, frankly, we have the other problem. So back then, our dorms were more expensive than the neighborhood. And we'd sell them on, well, it's proximate to classes and it's safe and yada, yada, yada. Now we're a lot cheaper than the neighborhood, so we're building more. And we have to be real careful about, are we keeping Midtown affordable and inclusive and things like that? But those are a different set of problems than, oh man, there's nobody here and it doesn't feel safe, or there's no activities, there's no restaurants, the place shuts down at 6 o'clock. Those kinds of.
It's never totally true though, right? There's always that too. Like there's always the, that the perception. I mean, why did I start this 15 years ago too? It's like people are like, oh, there's nowhere to go. I also actually thought that. That's why I made the checklist, because I was like, wait, how did I live here and not know this stuff? And so there, it's always important to recognize, right? And I know that there always have been people in Midtown. I mean, and the Cass Corridor specifically, right? And Cultural Center area, and there's always been businesses, and now there's more of all of those things, yes. Right? But the affordability is a huge part. But I also, shouldn't have ever been that cheap in the first place. Is always it was a course correct. I have two nieces that are that just finished their freshman year. We ran into them. You sold it, Ned, at Noel night, obviously pre-pandemic, and I was like, they're on the fence, so I think between the two of us, we got them
Awesome.
hooked. Two engineering ladies there, so they're on campus, and now they're going to be moving off campus, but they're still actually decided to do the new Anthony Wayne apartments, right?
Nice. Yeah,
because why would it? Because only Wayne State now, again, it's a positive thing for
it's cheaper. It's cheaper than the neighborhood. Yeah,
absolutely.
Even though we think of them as expensive relative to the other ones because of the new ones, but they're still cheaper than the new stuff. But perception, you said that's really important. So before I came to Midtown, before I came to the university, our police had already in 2009 swapped they made a conscious decision to swap strategies. They used to, previously to 2009, they were a traditional university police force. They patrolled campus, the parking lots. They made sure that the doors were locked at night on the buildings, that kind of stuff. They responded to problems on campus. 75-80% of their work was on campus. 2009, Chief Holt decided, and Chief Holt he's really the reason why Midtown is booming as it is, said, look, there's too much crime in this neighborhood for people to feel safe. And we can't stop that by only hanging out on campus. It drifts onto our campus. We got to get out and build a perimeter around campus and do it the right way. I mean, Chief Holt, he literally teaches the class nationally on how to de-escalate situations, how to do community-oriented policing the right way, how to build trust in communities with police. He's great. But so they started in 2009 doing this. And by the time I got here in 2011 and then 2012, crime was down 30, 40, 50%. From where it had been in a pretty wide neighborhood, radius around campus. Yeah. But the perception of crime was still back in the old days. And our folks were still really hesitant to talk about it. I remember going to a meeting about recruitment, and they were telling students, Yeah, we're in Michigan, Southeast Michigan, Metro Detroit area kind of thing. And I'm like, dude, we're in Detroit. Tell them. No, people get nervous about Detroit. The parents don't want to send their kids there. I'm like, okay, well, let's show them the stats. Let's put it on the website. And they're like, yeah, but the perception is if you're talking about a problem, people must think you already have a problem. I said, they already think we have a problem. Let's start let's show them the data. And I think now, even within a few years, everyone was like, Midtown safe. Thanks, Tony Hope. Thanks, Wayne State Police.
Well, it's experiencing it, right? I mean, obviously we're, I don't mean to even keep coming back to us, but that's the whole point. It's like once you come down, once you experience it, when you can see the stats, it's super important. It's facts and experience, right? Yeah. And personal experience and knowing somebody, I always say the most valuable word I ever use is right? I live here. I feel safe. I do this, right? And that's such a big part of it. And but absolutely the work that they have done, that it isn't just a silo, it is community, and that's been huge. So Techtown also is a small project that you work on.
It eats up a little bit of my time.
Yeah. A little bit about Techtown. We don't have tons of time left, but but a little bit about Techtown and how it's connected, and would Techtown be where it was today if the Office of Economic Development hadn't come around 10 years ago?
Well, the second one, and that's a counterfactual, I don't know. I will tell you that, Techtown is a separate entity from Wayne State, although it was sort of the brainchild of President Irv Reed, who was the president of the university, 20 years ago, and helped found it 16 years ago now. So it's separate from the university, but very connected. I do have jobs at both places. My predecessor didn't. She only worked at Techtown. She wasn't also a Wayne State employee. And so to try to answer your second question, when she was leaving, she said it needs to be better connected to the university. Ned, you should come over and combine what you're doing there, because and I said, I can't do two jobs. And she said, Ned, we're already at all the same meetings. It's not two jobs. It's only like 1.25. And it turned out to be more like 1.5. But she was right in that we were already looking at how do we support small businesses? How do we create vibrant, walkable economies? How do we do inclusive economic development? So there was a lot of overlap with the Office of Economic Development at Wayne. But to your first question of what is it? What does it do? I mean, Techtown is Detroit's largest business service organization. We've got about 50 people helping all kinds of businesses. They hear Techtown, they think tech, and we do that. But we also help restaurants and coffee shops and barbershops and retail and really home-based businesses. Anybody who's trying to start, grow, scale, stabilize any kind of entrepreneurial venture, we can help, or we can refer to one of our partners who can help as well. Our entire mission is how do we make sure that this recovery that's going to happen here in Detroit is inclusive and is making sure that everybody gets to participate in it so that it can be sustainable.
It's really amazing work. I mean, it was great. It's been through a lot of like many businesses, iterations to some extent, Techtown, and more recently, I mean, how quickly you guys mobilized to help businesses in the city during the COVID crisis. I mean, that being, that's one of the strongest pieces of any support system is how quickly you can move. Like it can help if you could have all this money that you want to give away, but if it takes years and paperwork up to wazoo, it's less impactful when people need it immediately.
Yeah, you got to balance. I mean, you want it to be equitable, you want it to be necessary, you want it to be a non-fraudulent, you have all that. So you want to have some diligence, but on the other hand, if it takes you 6 months, you might as well have not bothered. So that's probably my proudest moment in the 10 years I've been here.
Tell everyone about what I'm alluding to.
So last year in the first week of March, when it was apparent to everyone that we were going to shut down, it occurred to us, we had already at Techtown, we had seen that the pandemic was coming. We saw what happened in Italy and Spain, in Seattle, and it was moving here and no one was doing anything to stop it. So we already had a sort of a 4-stage plan on what to do with our employees, our tenants, our coworkers, all of that stuff. So when we realized they were going to shut down, we're like, oh man, what about our businesses, our small businesses, our clients? And so, most of them have less than 2 weeks cash on hand. And you go to Black neighborhoods across this country and 95% of businesses have less than 2 weeks of cash on hand. And we thought we were going to shut down for 2 weeks or a month. We didn't realize what it was going to be. But even so, that was a death blow to these folks. So we said, we need money. So I spent the weekend of March 13th, 14th, 15th on the phone and said, okay, DGC, MEDC, federal government, Invest Detroit, who's got money? Who can, foundations, NEI, who can give money to these businesses now? And the answer was, we hear you, you're right, but we're not ready for that. We're still trying to figure out what we're doing. We got to marshal other resources. It's going to be a month or 2 months before we're going to be able to do that. And I said, that is too late. We got 2 weeks. So over the weekend, we came up with this idea based on something they had been trying in Seattle, the Techtown Small Business Stabilization Fund. And over that, by Tuesday, we issued a press release. I raised $600,000. By Friday, we started taking applications. And over the next 2 weeks, we helped 300 businesses and we gave out about $600,000. And it was so successful that started getting calls from people saying, hey, you missed Hamtramck and Highland Park. You missed home-based businesses. Here's more money. Can you use the same infrastructure to do it? And so over the course of a couple months, we gave out $1.2 million of just cash for really general purposes to small businesses. The whole goal was to get them a few $1,000s, maybe $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to get them there until the PPP came through or the state money. We knew that was going to come, but we didn't know whether it was going to be 2 weeks or 3 months. And we knew that 3 months was too long.
Absolutely. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, that tenacity and being able to be nimble is so important. And it's certainly something I think Techtown does really well. And with your leadership and the awesome team that you've together, both on the economic development side and the Techtown side, the responding to the needs of clients, right? That's like too often we get bogged down in what, this is what we're doing and it's kind of head down, and you have to absolutely, especially if you're trying to actually support a community or be a part of that community, be always looking and listening to what the needs are around you.
We teach our clients that. We teach them always be doing customer discovery, always be pivoting, always this and that. But a lot of people who do programs don't do it themselves, right? Mm-hmm. They have hammer, they look for nail. Instead of asking folks, what do you need? Oh, you're a screw. Nail and hammer not going to work so much. I need to change what I'm doing to better suit your circumstances and remove barriers for you. And so like I said, that's probably my proudest moment that we were able to put that together. And of course, we didn't stop there. We ended up helping over 1,700 businesses last year in all kinds of ways, plus 25 nonprofits through the COACT Activate Fund, thanks to the Ralph Wilson Foundation. COVID was very sad. It was very scary in a lot of different ways, but I'm still really optimistic watching people step up. Watching leaders in this community rally together, like through the Detroit Means Business Coalition, thanks to Carla Walker Miller and Dave Meter at DTE. Like it really gives me a lot of cheer, and hope for the future that we're going to come back on the other side of this stronger than we've ever been.
And that's Detroit's, motto, right? It always, I know that can sound cheesy, but there's still people that don't know it, and it still just hits home, right? That Detroit's motto is, we hope for better things that will arise from the ashes.
Yep.
And how we've done that. Detroit has had more crises than most people. So is the silver lining of that we have experience, responding, and we do it collaboratively. We know that working together is the only way that we're going to get through whatever this crisis is or the next crisis is. And that is definitely one of those hopeful pieces out of this incredible tragic time that we've had in the last 15 so months. And then 10 years though of impact that you guys have done and just really getting started. So tell us what you want everyone to do. How can they help your work, the work that you guys are doing? Follow you on social. Give us all the call to action.
First of all, follow us on social. That's easy. Techtown is on all the platforms, including the ones that I'm too old for. But you can follow me on Twitter if you can handle heat, or on Facebook if you want to see what's happening in Detroit. Ned Staebler is the handle in both places. But let me tell you, we're not stopping. We've just started a process to do our next sort of 5 to 10 year plan. And so we're gathering all kinds of stakeholders to say, what do you need the university to be doing? What do you need Techtown to be doing? How can we make sure that everyone gets to participate in this inclusive recovery that's coming forward? One of the things we've already kicked off at Techtown, and if you want to support, we'd love it, is that we know there's a gap for Black tech founders. 80% of money to start these businesses is coming from their families and their friends and their credit cards. Well, when the average net worth of a Black family in this country is $17,000 compared to a white family at $171,000, we know that there's just some of that easy 5, 10, 20 grand things that, a white family can largely put on a credit card or borrow from dad or whatever. Black founders can't. So the Techtown Startup Fund is our answer to that. We're going to be able to provide that $3, $5, $10,000 to these early stage folks to cover things that other folks, it's not a barrier for other people. And we're taking donations now, techtowndetroit.org/donate. So any help would be much appreciated.
Absolutely. We will definitely push that out and continue to support you guys. And we always appreciate your support of us at Detroit Experience Factory. We as tenants at Techtown and now coworkers and partners in so many ways, we appreciate everything that you guys are doing in the city, and we look forward to continuing to work with you to build that equitable and thriving city that we can hopefully get to in the future.
We're going to get there. Thanks for all you've done over the last 15 years. I'm looking forward to see the next 15 years too.
Thanks, me too. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining us today. If you want to see other episodes of Discuss Detroit, they're all on the City Institute website at thecityinstitute.com. And we'll see you again. I'm Jeanette Pierce. Join any of our tours at the DetroitExperienceFactory.org and say nice things about Detroit. We'll end with Emily's quote there, and have a great day. Bye.
All right. Do I leave now?